Welcome to the Four Visions Market Podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforests, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Welcome back, Four Visions tribe. Today on the show, I'm joined by Lucas Salame, who enthusiastically shares his transformative journey from a materialistic and ambitious mindset to a holistically heart-centered life. After exposing shortcomings of Western medicine and the pharmaceutical industry, Lucas reveals his profound experience with depression that ultimately led him towards seeking out alternatives such as healthier foods, meditation, and trauma healing. Our conversation today revolves around topics like addiction, the importance of self-acceptance, connecting with one's higher purpose, and finding something greater than ourselves. As Lucas reinforces, the path to healing involves discipline, introspection, and alignment with our greatest purpose. The episode concludes on an inspiring note emphasizing the importance of embracing gratitude, healing wounds, and finding joy along the journey. Tune in for an authentic and inspirational exchange on personal healing, purpose, and embracing more fulfillment. Welcome, Lucas. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited to speak with you and drop in together and to get to share you and your beautiful wisdom and life experiences with our platform and community. So thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so as I was preparing a little bit for today's interview, I was just really feeling super inspired by your story, your call to action, the way in which you have lifted yourself up and really found your authentic medicine and purpose, and really found a path of healing and victory through stepping into your authentic medicine, your passion, you're finding your voice and sharing to help others now at this time to rise up and remember. And so I would love, for those of our listeners who maybe aren't super familiar with you, I would love for us to just start with you introducing and sharing a little bit about your journey and what got you to where you're at now with your work and your service.
Yeah, of course. So I started off, a regular American. I thought the average way. I was very materialistic. I was obsessed with just advancing myself in this matrix we call society, in the capitalist world. I went to, Ivy League school. I came from a successful family, so I had no idea about anything to do with healing, anything to do with that world at all. So I encountered mental struggles when I was 19. I always had them, but I took mushrooms for the first time, and I realized I was severely depressed and suicidal. And I had no idea. I thought I was fine. I had absolutely no clue. And yeah, it was from that moment I went out to seek help in the Western world, and I was given a psychiatrist who said my brain was broken and that I had to basically take pills to fix it. I did that. I quickly lost my mind. The side effects of the medication made me more suicidal, and I didn't want to be here at all. And in that moment, I realized that there had to be another way. That the pharmaceutical world was not intent on keeping me healthy. It was intent on keeping me just broken and destroyed so they could profit off of me. So that opened the door for me to figure out, okay, how do I do this the holistic way? How do I heal my mind and body the holistic way? And in that moment was, the spiritual awakening came, and all that jazz came in. I started getting into, much more healthier foods, meditations, breath work, somatic breath work, learning how to heal trauma, the nervous system, educating myself. So it really was, I got so hurt and broken from the Western world and the way it rewards certain things that it almost killed me. And then the way out from that has been my healing journey.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's so inspiring because, when we really take a look at the Western medicine complex and the pharmaceutical industry, you said it very eloquently. It is built to keep us small and to keep us in our suffering, and that is how they profit. And so when we're in that place, to have that fire within, that little flame, it could be really small, but something within you saying there's got to be more, this can't be the only way for me to go on. What was that process like for you? Like, what was that, where did it come from to start looking for other options and other ways out?
I mean, it was truly the only way is up. I think rock bottom is the most beautiful place anyone could be, because our egos are so damn stubborn that the only way we can see a way outside of ourselves, that the only way we can see a new life for us, a new path, is to be face first in the pit. That's the only way nowadays, unfortunately. So it took me to be face down in the pit to realize everything I've done up to this point has been incorrect. Everything I've taken has been incorrect. The only way out is if I create a whole new way of living. So that was the fire. The fire came out of destruction. The fire was just that I cannot keep going this way anymore. The only way I can get out of this is a complete new way. And I think that's the way in my experience, the universe works. I think the universe sends you warnings, a little tickle somewhere, a little signal something. But if we're so checked out in atheism and the Western world nowadays that it often takes destruction to wake us up. So unfortunately, that was my reality, that I had to be face first in the ditch of addiction and many things to see a way out. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's such a victory story, and really just celebrating you in this moment. And for anyone who, suffers with depression, addiction, and any other mental issues, I think it's so stigmatized in our society that we don't really recognize how predominant it truly is and mental illness really is, And so I would love to stay here for a minute and let's get
Of
into a
course,
little
yeah.
bit more this concept and of depression. First, I would love to get your take, your definition on what depression is and its nature, its elements and how we deal with it currently in our society and the ways in which we don't maybe deal with it.
Yeah, there are many facets to depression. I'll take the one that felt most true to me. My experience, depression for me was who I was presenting to the world and who I really was. That separation, that split caused my depression. For instance, let's say you're presenting to the world. So for me, it was someone who was super aggressive, macho. I was always turned on. I was always hyper. I was always, super stimulated. But in reality, I was very sensitive. I needed space. I needed tranquility to feel at peace. I'm kind of a hermit. I need to be reserved. Depression was really me needing to be that persona, and the person I truly was left at home hiding. And to me, that's what depression feels like, is when we can't really honor who we are. That's one piece, right? Is a split between who we're trying to be and who we really are. That's one piece. And then there's all the other pieces I think that, it's important to talk about. Like, I think there is a brain component that if you're not, eating the right foods or meditating right or treating your brain chemistry in the right way, you're going to have certain effects. So it's a combination of being in a space where you can't honor yourself, where you're too separated from who you really are, and then also doing habits and eating certain things are fucking up your brain, which is most foods nowadays and most habits in Western culture. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people don't even know that they're depressed, right? Because we're so on autopilot, and we get into those
Yep.
ruts where things suck, and we don't even realize that we are feeding ourselves horrible thoughts, and we're literally nourishing the mind with thoughts that do not serve us in bringing forth greater joy, greater love, greater unity, and instead we're feeding ourselves, and we're in this constant cycle of these habit forming thoughts and behaviors that cause us to just feel more and more depressed, more and more stuck, which is why depression is such a rabbit hole, right? Because it's really hard to get out. And, I think people who struggle with depression, which I think that I love that definition because it really is, it's very resonant for me. And it also just feels like part of the human spectrum of experience. And oftentimes, depression again is very stigmatized in our society. But when we take that definition, we kind of look at it from the larger lens, we see that all human beings in all of our life experiences, we go through these different waves of feeling more connected, more inspired, more aligned with truth. And then, depression often does come in waves. It comes, we go into those moments and points in our lives where we're really struggling. And it's in that moment where we don't even often realize that we're struggling, right? And so that's when it becomes really hard to get out and the coping mechanisms start. And I'm very curious to hear, a little bit more about your process with addiction and any, wisdom that you have to share, because I think, again, addiction is very universal. As if we look at the human psychology, we have coping mechanisms that are natural and healthy, and then we gravitate towards other mechanisms and habits that aren't. And so within that range, it's like, from your own experience and then, in what you've observed, how do we navigate the shifting and the awareness of when we're going to those coping mechanisms, which ones are healthy, and then like how we don't get ourselves caught in the ones that really are causing us to perpetuate the suffering and the separation?
It's a great question that requires a nuanced answer, so I'm going to try and do my best. I think there are various forms of addictions. The ones that are particularly nefarious are the ones that are numbing wounding that you have to process in order to move forward. That's the best way I could put it. That if you're doing something repeatedly to avoid a trauma, to avoid the processing and release you have to do for a trauma, that's when addiction gets nasty. And for me, what it was I had severe anxiety for various reasons. I grew up with severe health issues. I had pretty bad asthma and eczema, where I woke up almost every night on borderline dying, like choking and covered in blood from me scratching myself. So my nervous system was addicted to just always being terrified and anxious. So I got addicted to my 19 to 21 to taking Xanax and any downers that would kind of, whenever that trigger of anxiety and like fearing for my life would come up, I'd numb it and I'd repress it. So I think where it became problematic is that I couldn't tolerate my wounding. I think one of the best advice someone ever gave me with self-help, which is kind of counterintuitive, was just to learn to grin and bear your wounding. Like, we're going to suffer in today's day and age. I'm not the kind of, guru or person who's going to say, do this and all your pain's going to go away. You will always be facing some kind of pain or discomfort. If you don't, then, hats off to you, amazing. But most of us are going to be feeling uncomfortable, wounded from our past. Like, trauma doesn't magically disappear. It's impossible. Some of my trauma has disappeared a good amount from years of releases and stuff like that. But back to my original point, you have to learn to be able to sit with your triggers. When we can't tolerate them and be with them and not let them completely throw us off our course, that's when addiction comes in. So, to summarize, you're addicted to a problem when you're using a substance, a behavior, could be porn or something like that, or a drug or weed or something, to not be with yourself and your wounding. Whatever's taking you out of being able to tolerate yourself and tolerate your pain is what's causing addiction. So for me, why I no longer call myself an addict is that I've learned to tolerate all discomfort, all wounding that comes my way. If a trigger comes up from the past, and all new triggers will come up in my life, in my shadow work, the key way out for me has been to just learn how to tolerate the wounding. Just sit with it and feel it and process it. And with enough repetition over time and learn to feel safe with my triggers, my wounding, over time, the need to escape it just doesn't exist anymore in me. Like, I'll always feel wounded and hurt at some point in time. I think it's universal. But my need to escape it and run away doesn't exist anymore. So that's my answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful perspective of how to, overcome and maintain that level of discipline with the thoughts and, really form that strictness of what we allow to feed ourselves on and what we don't nourish, right? What we don't feed. I think it's really interesting too, this concept of overcoming and recognizing that our traumas do need to be processed and that they define us, right? So like who we are where we are who we are because of the traumas that we endured, of our life experiences, of all of the wounds and the pain that we have endured. They literally have make up who we are today. But going forward, we get to define that relationship to those stories, to those memories, to those woundings. So I think a big element is in that relationship with our story. I'm curious,
Yep.
for you, what you've learned in that process in regards to, overcoming addiction, and then, really you've had such a massive shift in what you're doing with your life, from the rock bottom that you said, you experienced, to how you're really stepping out and sharing now, these insights, these teachings that you've received along your journey. So what was it that really like activated that within you and allowed you to really step into that person that you were always wanting to become, but not shoving the old Lucas away, right? Because that's not possible. Like, how did you integrate the old version of yourself and let it be the fertilizer to pave this new path for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, the key thing for me has been shadow work. I know it's a cliched, overused term in this space, but a lot of what used to drive me was nefarious in the sense of needing power and validation. I didn't get much power and validation as a kid. I had very absent parents. All love to them. I'm grateful for my experience. It got me here now, but I didn't receive the love I needed in that moment to feel seen and appreciated. So from that experience, I used those woundings to create a persona to manipulate people to get those things. I became hungry for validation, and I do things to hurt people to get it. What I realized in my path is that in the beginning, I'd shame those sides of me. I'd shame that inner child who needed validation and wanted to be seen and have power and wanted, fame or attention. I used to shame it and just try and repress it. But then it only grew larger and larger, and its need to be seen and integrated into light became more and more apparent. So the biggest step for me was in seeing, okay, these core wounds in me exist. The need for, being seen and validated and having attention, I can't delete them. They're built into me from a young age. What I can do is integrate the shadow into outlets that allow me to use those things for fuel in a way. I want to be seen and and liked in some ways. Okay, I'm going to be of service and put myself in the spotlight so I can help people as much as I can to learn something. Like, we all have these negative shadow traits that we deem as negative, nefarious, and shame them. But in them is our biggest gift. Like, my need to be seen and validated and to be heard is actually my fuel. If I didn't have that, I would have no discipline to be on camera or to speak or to write or to do these things. That these woundings, these shadows, are actually our biggest gifts. They're the diamonds. If we can learn to dig deep enough, and lose the shame and try and find the light that they exist with. Yeah. So take your biggest shit, put it in a bucket, clean it until you find that diamond, and that diamond is what you have to do to create yourself.
I love that. That's beautiful. Yes, 100%. Yeah. So ultimately, through discipline and through doing the work, we can get to that place and really face these inner truths. And I think that that's like a big key too, is like embracing them and not running away, like you said, and really coming, face to face with these elements of us, and then finding the beauty. So this is really incredible. Unfortunately, it's not what we are trained or conditioned to do, right? It's not what our society upholds as like the accepted practices for the parts of us that we don't really want anyone to see. And I just am wanting to also touch a little bit on how we deal with mental illness and these bigger issues in youth and in children. And I think part of why this is coming through is like, as I was reading more about your story of like being, diagnosed as bipolar, for me, my experience with some of these more severe mental illnesses is the diagnosis itself is so very traumatic in itself. And it creates,
sure.
it really does cause the life trajectory of a person to take a completely different turn. And so I'm very interested in your insights and experiences on that for you personally, but then also like from a greater context of how we're dealing with severe anxiety in children, you know, like eczema, like that you had as a child. That's like a real light bulb, right? For us to see that this child is not feeling secure, this child is not feeling balanced, and it's literally manifesting in the physical body in this way. And so yeah, whatever you feel inspired to share about this, and then, you know, to tie it back and like how we can hold that experience of, you know, some of these intense emotions that children are having in today's society, specifically because of the makeup of our society, right? And like a lot of the anxiety that children experience is because of the design that we have families in, and the school system and everything. But yeah, whatever you feel called to share on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and answer this in parts because it's pretty complicated. But the first thing I'll say is that the fact that we're given 5 to 10-year-olds, to me, the craziest example is giving elementary school students Adderall and Ritalin, ADHD medication. So I saw a study that said that they gave recovering crack addicts in like a recovery clinic Adderall, high doses of Adderall, to just see the effect of it. And these crack addicts noted down their experiences, and they said they felt no different on the Adderall versus on crack. So you're literally giving young kids some form of crack. If you combine Ritalin and Adderall, you get methamphetamine, literally. So you're giving these kids meth just for what? And why I'm saying that is that these pills, Adderall's ADHD medication is the best example, because for a kid to fit into this matrix of capitalism and hyperstimulation and always being on and paying attention, listen to your teacher, and being a good subservient of the system, they have to give you Adderall to turn you into a robot. It sounds like a crazy take, but it's true that these medications are basically society's lobotomization of ourselves to turn us into robots. That they have a caricature of this is the ideal healthy person in the U.S. They listen, they pay attention, they do what they're told. And in the Western world or any capitalist place, if they do and they work well, if they do those things, they're good. They're not mentally ill. So the system tries to put us on to this caricature of what they want in us to be subservient to listen to them. So a kid in class who's the class clown, joking around, not paying attention, not taking things seriously, which is a huge superpower in many ways, that person cannot be sane in this fucked up system. They're insane, but they're actually sane. So to make them fit into the mold of sanity, they give them these pills. However, it's not the way we heal. It's not correct. The system is broken. So anytime that anyone says you have to give a pill to be like everyone else, automatically that's just like the worst solution ever. So that's my first point, that these pills basically are society's or the medical matrix's way of making us fit into what they deem as sane. But what they deem as sane is actually completely insane. That's one. Two, this is kind of a hot take, but my experiences, from my personal experiences of what happens, getting diagnosed as depressed, anxious, ADHD, bipolar is it's actually cheating in my eyes, because when I was told I was depressed and anxious, bipolar, I felt like I was like, oh, I'm just broken. It's whatever. I'm anxious, cool, whatever. I'll chalk up all my issues to anxiety, to depression. I'll take a pill, I'm good. So you're bypassing all the mechanisms and processes you have to use to heal yourself. You're basically given a cheat code saying, okay, you are forever using this label of anxiety, depression, bipolar to never do the work. Here you go. Just do whatever you got to do. It doesn't work. If you use these labels as depressed, anxious, bipolar, you are just someone who's healing. You can feel stress in the moment. You can feel sad. You can feel broken for a month or two. You are not depressed. You are a blob of energy that's healing in some way and cleaning up your frequency to become the person you need to be of service. That's the reality. So we got it all wrong, and we can't profit off that, unfortunately. So it's the way that the system will keep perpetuating it. So yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like for adults, it's one narrative. Like we need to learn to empower ourselves to take our power back from all the external authorities that we go to tell us if we're okay, right? Our doctors and just the Western medical complex, constantly going to others to know if we're okay. And I think that that's like a
Mhm.
big element of it is like really starting to choose to go inwards and identify, whether we're feeling well, and trusting our intuition. I think as a society, we're so very disconnected to that inner voice, and then it's just not a part of our culture to tune in. We're so trained to go outside of ourselves for guidance, to be told whether or not we're on the right track, to be told what to do in our career.
Yep.
Everything is outside of ourselves, right? So I think that's one really important element that, on my own personal healing journey, and just I think a big element to a spiritual path is learning to be finding our sovereignty again, finding our
Yes.
sovereignty
Yeah.
and really
Sorry
being able to
to chime
reclaim
in,
that.
but it's just you're 100% correct. While I'm chiming in, because I want to just validate what you're saying. It's one of the biggest things I noticed in the self-help world that messes me up is over-reliance or dependence on someone else to show us the way. I
Hmm.
think it's truly repugnant, because most healers I see in this space, or in my experience I've had or been with, they're presenting a God complex in a way to be the one to say, I know what's best for you. Listen to me, right? That's what doctors, psychiatrists say too. It's the same system. The
Hmm.
best for anyone out there who has a healer or a coach, the best healers and coaches, the best healer will help you find the healer within, period.
Hmm.
If the person who's helping you isn't helping you find the healer within yourself, get rid of them. They're trying to
Hmm.
profit off you forever. The only healers you should contract or see are the ones that teach you and show you. This is how you access your own inner healer. This is how you learn to follow that voice. That's the only healer that you ever need in this space.
Hmm. 100%. Yeah, and I think it definitely requires training our minds and cultivating that inner listening and confidence to follow our intuition. And that can be for so many things. Okay, I'm getting this hit. I need to start incorporating exercise into my routine. Like, let me go do that, right? Instead of like going to a doctor to tell you that you need to be exercising more. It's
Yeah.
like that's just a very simple example of the ways that we're
Mm-hmm.
constantly seeking this external validation, and it's so interwoven within our system, and and it really comes down to everything, and it comes down to returning to our connection to source. And you did mention, this you mentioned at the beginning, like that one of the elements that you feel in our society is missing is like that connection with faith and connection with something greater than ourselves. And I'm curious if you could share a little bit about that as well, because I agree. I feel that we're often just operating from this place of it's just me and the world, and there's nothing else out there. And whether or not you believe in God or not, oftentimes in our culture we don't operate from that place of true faith and belief in God. And so, yeah, like I'd be curious to hear how that plays into the way that you see these elements.
100%. There's two pieces. I think the first piece, I'll try to argue to the people who don't believe in God, is that the only thing or a higher power, what I will undoubtedly say, even though I know there's a God, I don't believe, I know there's a God, but to those who don't believe in it, what I will argue to them is that, in my experience, having dealt with mental health issues severely, having gone through the path where I've been broken in many ways, the only thing that truly lifted me was believing in something outside of me. Because the thing is that we each have a hierarchy of values, and whatever we put at the top becomes our God. So to those who love politics, the God becomes authority, the president, or it becomes their chosen political party, and then their religion becomes hating on the opposing side.
Mm-hmm.
If you're someone who loves money, your God becomes money. If you're someone who loves gossip, your God becomes the Daily Mail and watching Love Island reality TV. Like whatever you value the most in our consciousness becomes that God. So whatever you put at your highest value is going to dictate your level of peace and happiness. My God used to be power and wanting to run the world. So whatever that was my highest thing to look towards, and it ruined me. It killed me because I have no power much, in this world. I can't control much. So what I'm saying is that to develop some kind of sanity, your highest value has to be something that benefits your mind, whether it be love or I think love is God in many ways. Whether it be love or service or just giving removing the ego from the equation, like giving yourself and your energy to something outside of you, if that becomes your highest value, you are signing up for a life of clarity, love, and peace. So that's the first part of my equation, is that your level of sanity, your level of peace and groundedness is dependent on you choosing something worthwhile to be your highest value. So to me, my highest value is love. I think the vibration of love is a piece of God. So I try and give that. My highest order is love. Again, it sounds cliche and cheesy and corny, but to me, it gives me the biggest return on my mental state of mind. The second piece has been, I felt the presence of it in various experiences. I think it's tough to believe in something if you haven't had experiences that have shown you the way. I'm thankful and grateful to have had psychedelic experiences where I've felt the presence of a higher power. I've seen it. I've had moments in just waking reality where suddenly I see everything vibrating super intensely and like moving around, and because I felt like the level of love in every object. So I've had moments, even without being on psychedelics, which kind of seen something outside of me. So I'm grateful to have had that experience, because now I kind of know that it exists. So that's two pieces of my answer, is that the higher value piece, and also that I've had experiences where I've felt the presence of a higher power, where I can't have any doubt, just because I've seen it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the greatest examples I always give is like nature is self-evident, right? So even if we have trouble believing in that there's someone in the sky looking down upon us, which, because dogmatic religions is very abrasive for a lot of people. Nature exists, right? The sun rises every morning, and the sun sets, and the moon rises, and it will always be there. It's this self-evident experience of something greater than ourselves. And so this connection is what I have found to be the most supportive to nourishing my spiritual connection. A lot of people start the spiritual path like just so lost and not sure what they're looking for. But this is what they're looking for. It's love, it's connection, and all of these elements are synonymous with creation. So for me, it's not within religion that we necessarily need to find these elements, but if we are operating and living from a place where life doesn't exist, where love, the highest power, doesn't exist, there's never going to be any resolve. There's never going to be any comfort or solution found in that, or fulfillment, right? So for that element, it's like really comes down to asking, is this the life that you really want to live? A life where there's no possibility, there's no miracle, there's only what we can see, feel, and hear, because that is in itself so limiting and so stagnating. It's boring, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So essentially, with your journey with addiction, and your process of cultivating and nourishing these practices that help you to feel connected, what are some of the elements that you have turned to consistently to help you find this connection and help you activate this connection with life?
Yeah, I mean, it's practices I do to connect. I've kind of created a formula of things I need, every day to feel connected, and part of it is incorporating spiritual aspects into my day to day. I make sure to start each morning with some kind of conversation, choose something outside of me. My mom passed away last year, and that has been a beautiful experience for me, because it's enhanced my connection to the other side. Because now, back in the day, I'd ask, hey, what's up, God? What's up, universe? Like, I need help me out with these things. My intention is to be yada yada. I didn't feel like I had to do all the time, or was like this necessary thing. Now my mom, like, I have to wake up and talk to her every day, and that like, I group her in with the universe, all these things, and just having that dialogue each morning, just communicating to something outside of me, believing that something outside of me is benefiting me or helping me out, is a huge practice. Because I think it gets super heavy when we are going through day-to-day life and we see things not going our way. That's one of the biggest human points of suffering, is when what we think life should be in our egoistic delusions is not life. Mm-hmm. That to me is unhappiness. Like, unhappiness equals my expectation of reality is not meeting what it actually is. And that's when I think spirituality has helped me a lot, in the sense of for people listening, do this practice. Everything that happened in your life happened the way it did. So who you are today is a direct result of everything that came with you. All the trials, all the errors, all the fucked up mistakes, all those things got you to exactly where you are. So, and throughout the whole time, you thought things weren't going your way. So I use that thought exercise now in the present moment, that I know that if something's not going my way, that's good. Because my way isn't the highway. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion. The higher way is the way. That whatever happens in my life that isn't going the way I think it should be going is the only way it should be going to benefit me in the longer run. That's probably the biggest practice that goes into my spirituality. It just when those triggers come up of feeling powerless and robbed of, I can't control this, I can't dictate this, taking a moment to connect and being like, thank you, universe, thank you, God, thank you, mom, thank you, all those people trying to help me. Thank you for forging me into the person I have to be. You know, when we say we want patience, we want love, we want to be kind, those things don't come automatically for some people. You know, I met some people who are automatically kind and loving. That's their karma. Mm-hmm. I came into this life wounded, angry, and I had to learn how to love and be kind. I had to learn how to be of service. And I love that story for me. I love that had to be the way it was, because I've learned so much. So that's probably my biggest practice, is expressing some kind of gratitude and belief to the universe or to whoever you speak to or pray to, and thanking them for all the things they've done for me on the way, on the path, all the character development it's given me. Because I used to be in so much pain when I thought that everything wasn't going my way and I had no power. Because nothing will ever go your way the way you exactly desire it. So to depend on satisfaction from things going your way is quite literally the fastest way to misery. Mm-hmm. So every day I just try to have that in the back of my mind all day. Just thank you for whatever you're crafting in my life. Because I have a conception of what I want it to be, but deep down I don't really know. So that's been a big practice, just consistently expressing thanks for however my life is going, even if I don't think it's going the right way. Because eventually it will become the right way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Gratitude is such a door that opens up so much for us and helps us to expand in everything that we do, in our capacity, what we're able to hold. Like without gratitude, things that you wouldn't necessarily think that you can handle, you won't ever be able to handle. But then when you open into gratitude, you're able to expand so much more and really hold whatever life is throwing at you. And so I love that reminder and bringing that element into the conversation.
You know, you need it. I know it's hard. Like, I think we're trying to be more careful with my language these days, because it's pretty impossible to always leap to gratitude, right? Let's say, someone you love ghosted you or blocked you, or something bad happened in your life. Like, it's pretty difficult to just immediately be like, oh, thank you, God, thank you for punching me in the face. It's like, it's not that easy. So just put that out there for people, because it's a process to it. Like, do what you can to release the frustration, release the emotions in the human self, to open the door to gratitude. Like, when I'm super angry or frustrated over something I know logically is stupid, like, losing a client or something like that in that nature, I'll just release the emotions. Like, I'll feel it. Okay, my human self is frustrated. Let me, go grab a pillow and like, express it. And then gratitude will come. I think we try and bypass that human experience that we're all here for a reason to have. So, if you're facing something uncomfortable or something you don't like, that's okay. Be with it, release the emotions, and then, jump to gratitude. But don't go straight to it. Don't bypass your human experience.
That's such a great point. Yeah, I think like we often fall into the cycle of like feeling bad that we're not being grateful, right? And like feeling shaming ourselves for not being grateful, and that's not the way to get there either, right? We have to go through the process and really accept a release and feel the extent of the emotion, and then find the gratitude. And we can pray to have more gratitude, right? That's also possible to like cultivate it and set that intention to open ourselves up to greater gratitude in our lives and thankfulness and appreciation for the beauty, the blessings all around us. But it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's like with everything. And, we have to cultivate it. We have to rewire our brain and shift the thoughts, shift the belief systems that we've been believing and living for so long. What are some of, I think talking to someone who's a former addict, like it's such a great perspective, because it's like it's one of the most extreme, like experiences of rewiring is like releasing addiction. So from your experience and then, throughout your spiritual journey, what are some of the key elements to forming good habits that you have experienced? And that can be, physical habits. It can also be habits of the mind and the thought.
Yeah, so what's helped me is just this first I'll start here. We often will always try and we often face a battle between what's right and what's easy. You have to do what's right until it becomes easy. So what I mean by that is that if, let's say working out, or I love lifting weights, exercising, I don't like doing it. Most days I don't want to do it, but it's become this constant thing that it's just become easy now. Like I just know I have to go to the gym. Like it's just part of my day. I don't overthink it. Just like, it's 5 p.m. I gotta go to the gym. It's easy now because I've done it so often. So there's a period of time, like depends on the habit, like a week or a month or some time like that, where it feels difficult to do the thing, right? Like, for example, every morning I wake up and the first thing I do is go in an ice bath. That's actually my greatest tool, I think, if people can do something like that, has been to do the thing I least want to do in the morning, every morning, just to flex that muscle of I will do what my soul needs, what my body needs to operate at a high level, even though it's the last fucking thing I want to do. And now when I'm procrastinating or, I have a craving for eating some unhealthy stuff or anything like that, I'm so familiar with that voice. It's just a voice. Like, I think that's actually the key point here is that the voice of temptation that wants to take you away from your highest path and doing things that benefit you, it's just a voice. It's literally just a voice. It's a voice in your mind that you're choosing to follow. So become very familiar with that voice. Like that voice, I don't want to be too harsh on that voice as part of you, but it's like you have to see it kind of like a dragon or some kind of entity in you that's not a battle because it's hard to hate a part of yourself, but it's just existing in you, and it's whispering to you. It's a seductress, it's some kind of entity that's trying to pull you out of your highest self. And I love the ice bath in the morning because every morning I hear that voice. It's like, do not get in this thing. Be warm. Get back in bed. It's hot. Like you cannot do this. Like don't do it. It's constantly trying to convince me to not do what I know is best for me. And every morning I hear its whisper and I don't even address it. I just go. So it's learning to become aware of what that voice is. Like it's a very particular voice in our minds that tells us these things, that pulls us away from these habits that benefit us. Learn to recognize that voice and then overcome that voice. That's the biggest thing I'll say is be very familiar with what that voice is and repeatedly just learn to overcome it. But what I want to clarify is don't shame it, right? Don't shame that voice. It's not helping you. It's not a good voice, but don't shame it. Just see it, hear it. Thank you, Shadow. Thank you, voice of resistance. Thank you very much for your help. I know that because sometimes that voice is right. Sometimes that voice that needs comfort, that needs safety, that needs to just be chill for a second is right sometimes. It's trying to help you. Your ego, your shadow is trying to help you. So I say thank you, shadow, thank you, ego. I hear you, but I'm going to choose to do this. So yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, I love it. And it's so true. I think one important element, and maybe you want to expand on, is like, I have found that if that voice is creating so much noise in my mind to not do this thing, and I'm not talking about like big things that are self-harming, I'm talking about like eating the chocolate bar, right? So like if we're letting there be so much noise and we're like in this constant battle, when does it just become better to just like let ourselves indulge in that thing that we know is not like the best thing, but it's actually like just going to silence the voice, and that we're not going to be like feeding ourselves and like in that little cycle of those thoughts, like the noise is just so loud. I'm curious your take on that, because like, for example, my spiritual teacher, like he says this a lot. He's like, yeah, just eat the chocolate bar. If it's going to be quieter than all of the noise that you hear for the hours that you're obsessing about eating the chocolate bar. And this is, again, like this is for the examples that we obsess over and that we're so hard on ourselves, and that like, we're working towards better forming habits, but like we still have those elements that we want to clean up. What would you say in that case?
Yeah, I half agree, I half disagree. I think it's useful to use that if you add this peace at the end of it. So out of all the things, I've had a podcast, my podcast, one of the leading habit experts in the world is my professor in college. And he studied in a lab, which is the most effective way to change a habit, is to basically like do the thing, right? So let's say you use chocolate, for example. Have the chocolate, but then eat the whole thing. Wait half an hour. Feel it. Like, be visceral. Feel the sugar rush. Feel feel everything in your body. Remember it. And always go back to that when you have cravings. So that's what I'll do sometimes. Is that like if that voice is like super not drugs or anything like that, but let's say it's like watching something stupid or eating something, I'll do it, and then after that I feel horrible. I don't feel like myself. This is not worth it. I'm gonna remember this feeling, so use that. So to follow that extension is that next time you face that craving of the chocolate bar, compare two timelines. One timeline is the way you'd feel in 2 hours, no chocolate bar. Feel that peace, that clarity, that nervous system regulation. You feel peaceful. Then feel the path of you being hyped up on sugar, stressed out, anxious, unhealthy. You have stomach issues, you have stomach ache, you can't sleep well at night. Feel that in your body. Compare both, and I promise you, it's going to be a lot harder to eat the chocolate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. It's
do that
true.
with anything you're doing. Mm-hmm. Like that's what my biggest thing is. Like with the working out or the ice bath or meditations, whenever I don't want to do it, I feel my body, the two paths. Right? Let's say in the morning I don't want to do my meditation. I'll feel the lack of clarity, the confusion, the lack of serotonin in my brain, the lack of groundedness in my body. I'll feel that in my body, and I'll compare it to the peace, the strength, the clarity, the presence I have in my system, and I don't have a choice in that moment. I just it doesn't compare at all. So that's a big life hack that I'd recommend for people to use throughout their day, to choose things that benefit them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. And really like returning to this cultivation of what's in our highest goods and really letting that be the guiding force. I think it's also like this other element that we don't often speak to in habit forming is this awareness that, we have a spiritual body, a subtle body, and a physical body, and ultimately, like the spirit is so light and pure that when we go to consume these elements, we're literally lowering our vibration. We're literally like trying to ground here in this reality, and it's actually in some way like it is a coping mechanism, but it's also just like it's like how we're responding to the frequency of spirit wanting to come in. And so one of the other elements to that is like to go into and cultivate the spiritual body, and in doing that we can sustain that frequency more. And I found that through the cultivation of the spiritual practice, the desires to choose those self-sabotaging things or the things that lower our frequency and vibration, they also disseminate that way as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's said very well. I completely agree. And it's the more you are in that space of clarity with your higher self and peaceful, the more less you'll crave those things. So to extend off your point, it's a good signal when you have those cravings to realize that you're out of alignment with your highest nature, and to go back into practices that give you back that strength. So if you have that craving for, to take a drink or to, if you're a guy to watch porn or, to do something that doesn't feel good in your system, that means that you're out of alignment, that your spiritual body's hurting. So it's a good point. I agree.
So you are working in the capacity at this time with your podcast, with your articles and your writing and sharing and speaking a lot. Could you share a little bit more about the work that you do and the ways in which you are kind of fulfilling your purpose and mission right now?
Yeah. So when I was getting clean off drugs, and I felt it was weird. It was suddenly the most painful period of my life where for about 2 weeks I was convulsing. I couldn't move because I was going through drug withdrawals. I was, I felt I had every thought I had for 2 weeks was to kill myself, like like a machine gun on repeat. But then the week after, I felt the most clear I've ever been. It was like the craziest exorcism I've ever been in myself. Like I was literally, I went through a 2 week ego death. I died. Like who I was died, and then the me person now came up. In that space, I realized what if I wrote about this? What if I wrote about why I got into drugs, the effect of it, and what I'm going through now, the withdrawal period, and how it was almost all from pharmaceuticals and legal prescriptions. Because I was addicted to pharmaceuticals, mostly, Klonopin and Xanax and that school of psychiatric medication and uppers like Adderall. I had a bad doctor just give me a bunch of them, like whenever I wanted like new prescriptions, so I just take a bunch of them. So I wrote about that experience, and in that, it wasn't like I had good results, like people got inspired, but I felt aligned. I felt like, oh, this is what I should be doing. And it was so far away from what I was expected to do, right? I was in the root of like very matrix-based office jobs and all that kind of stuff, all that jazz. It was so foreign, but I felt so alive. I felt like finally I was like, this is what I'm here to do. But I studied of all things politics in college. So I had no idea about anything. I was like, I got to figure this out. So how would I educate myself like I did in college? So I was a good student. So how do I apply this to healing and self-help? So about every week for around a year and a half, 2 years, I was okay. I don't know about generational trauma or the nervous system. Let me buy 8 books or a bunch of them, read them, and then write a long article on my analysis of that thing and a different lane I'd take in that space. So I did that around 80 something times, and I built a foundation in my mind of a lot of things, a lot of different tools and tool sets. I do think intuition and being present is important in this path, but it's also true that you have to have knowledge to go back to when things are difficult. I think it's important to have wisdom and knowledge to cultivate when you're facing the fire. So that was the first thing, was educating myself. So the beginning was me educating myself and then sharing what I learned on the way. So I wasn't too attached to the outcome at the time. It's actually beautiful because I think now what I'm doing, there's some shadowistic need to be validated and seen in views and likes, all that kind of stuff. It's affecting me. But before I was just writing, and I just wanted to learn. In that process of writing, people got help, right? That was the first part. And then I was, okay, I have this foundation in my mind. I want to start creating a podcast. But I think as a man, I don't have the most, spiritual like look or identity. I look like the the average Joe. I look like a masculine guy with tattoos. I work out, and I just wanted to be able to have a space where I'm young. I'm 24. I want to have like a young masculine man being able to speak to people at a deep level about their wounding, about the trauma, with love and compassion, and me also being vulnerable in my story. I think that would have the biggest effect over anything. Just someone in my position, giving that impression to men or women that a man like that exists to a woman, and also for men to be like, oh, I can actually honor that side of myself who is deep and needs to be vulnerable and needs to talk about emotional health and intelligence. So that's my biggest thing. And also, like, to be honest, I'm just really curious. Like I have a deep desire to just learn and absorb. I don't know much, at all. All I can do is listen to people who know more than me. And that's been my intention, is educating myself through writing, through listening to people, to experts, and then sharing what I learn. And then if people get help, that's amazing. I've had many people say they didn't kill themselves because of articles I wrote on suicide, stuff like that. So that's heartwarming, that makes it worth it. But I don't have a choice. It's like, I love to say that, like, I'm doing this, because I love it. I'm on fire, but I don't have a choice. This is my destiny. If I don't do this, bad things will happen to me. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll get sick. The universe won't be happy with me. I've done it. I've tried. The only way I've kind of found happiness and peace is when I follow this path. It's my destiny. If I don't follow it, then I'm going to be smacked in the ass by the universe. So I think that's what it happens when you find your purpose. Like, it just is. It's the way. There's no other way. I can't not do this. So that's my strange answer. I think when people find their purpose, they feel that way. That it just is. It's their karma. It's their karmic path that there's no other way. They can try. They're gonna be miserable. They're gonna be chastised by the universe. But there's no other way for me. I have to do this.
I love that. I love your commitment. And wow, you're 24. That's incredible. Just really celebrating you and your journey and this remembrance process. It's beautiful to have, the people waking up and claiming it and choosing their path. We need that. We need this authenticity and, people listening to their inner calling. So just sending you a lot of
Yeah, because
blessings on your journey and
I
everything that you're
appreciate
here
it.
to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like whenever I talk to anyone, I don't know if you're familiar with this or you feel the same way. Whenever I talk to 40-year-olds or 50-year-olds, they're like, "Man, if only I was your age and knew what you knew." I was like, "Okay, you could have been that way, you know." So I think what motivates me is that you don't exist until you wake up. I truly mean that. I didn't. I was a ghost. I was a NPC in this video game we call it reality. I was checked out. I had no idea who I was. I was an autopilot. I was just doing things because it just was an autopilot. So I didn't wake up or become a human until I gained awareness over my body myself. That happened to me at 21. So very young at a very insane level. But it's an advantage because I found myself at a young age. Therefore, I have so many more years of being in alignment, in being in a higher frequency. So why I also do what I do is that if I encourage younger people, 16, 17, 18, early 20s, younger kids to wake up, that effect is drastic. Like it's easy for a 40-year-old, 30-year-old to wake up. If we have the next generation of kids who are so fucking checked out, it's unbelievable. Like it's the most extreme level I've ever seen in my life. If those people are finding me or people like me, at my age, taking someone like me who says, "Hey, this has helped me so much," just waking up mentally at a young age. If I inspire those people to wake up at a young age, it's going to make a massive shift in our collective consciousness. Yep.
That's beautiful and so true, and something that we really don't think about enough is like, how do we inspire these young people that are coming to choose life and what that would mean for the world? 100%. Like, wow, that's the world I want to see in 40, 60 years. Like, that's the world I want to leave for my kids. And I love it that's your thinking process, your thought process, and what you're sharing and how you're getting it out to the world. So very beautiful.
It's here for us. It's here. I think there's like we're in a space right now where there's more room consciously in the energy of the universe to wake up. It's just it's the craziest I've ever seen in a long time. There's just so much light right now. However, in this game we call life, for however much light there is, the opposite force of equal amount of darkness. So there's half people who are just checking out more and sleeping more, another half who's ready to wake up. I want to take that group and go all the way fucking up, because it's there. We have the most space right now to heal. It's here. There's so much more awareness. There's so much more resources right now to heal. It's all here for us.
Mm-hmm. So beautiful. Well, Lucas, I would love to ask one more question, and I'm curious, what would you say to someone who is really struggling and maybe listening to this podcast and, at this moment in time doesn't know or cannot comprehend another way out? What would be the message you would leave to that person who has no hope?
If we're talking about no hope, to me translates to rock bottom. Like no hope to me is dissolution. It's just complete annihilation. If you have no hope and it's a beautiful place to be. I think that's where I'd start. Whenever I get people who talk to me who are suicidal or they're deeply down, I tell them, "Hey, you're going to want to smack me in the face. You're not going to believe me, but where you are is so beautiful, because you know right now that everything you're," back to my first point in the beginning of this conversation, you know deep down, viscerally, that who you are and what you've done is not serving you. In your body, you know for a fact that you cannot keep going this way. And that's beautiful because you're being called for higher expression. The universe is picking you and giving you this misery to say, you're more than this. You are more than this. You have a way that's not this. And through you expressing that vulnerability to people you trust and love who know a way, that's a gift. Because I think there's so much shame in that space when we're hopeless or desolate or, feeling unworthy. The shame kills us. Like when I felt like a piece of shit, when I felt unworthy, that literally shame was what almost killed me. Various suicide attempts. That's what almost killed me. Well, I've told people who are suicidal, that's immediately lifting them up is losing the shame, being like, be happy and grateful where you are, because you are at a space where you can listen to me and believe me and think that there has to be another way out. I can't keep doing this. So feel that love, feel that gratitude of thinking that, the universe, God, the energy outside of me has told me, you are more than this. You are worth more than this. There's a path outside of this that can help you. You are here to be of service, to lead, to be of loving dedication to a higher purpose. Trust that. It's not going to be fun in the moment. I'm not going to bypass this. It sucks. I had months of my life where I felt like shit. It's not fun, but what will come of it is beautiful. And think about before that, like, if that didn't happen, the person you would have gone 10, 20 more years the same way. You would have been in the exact same amount of pain 20 years on the line. You would have been 30, 40, had kids, been depressed. You got that shortcut. Whoever you are, like, you saved yourself time. You saved yourself years and years of despair. So to summarize, be grateful that you're given a second chance. You're given an opportunity to create a higher path for yourself, and consult people who know about this and who love you, who can help you find that road.
I love it. Thank you so much, Lucas. It's so great. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you so much for your time and for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much. You have a very, very kind, beautiful spirit. It's good to find someone out there who's full of light. Thank you for asking all those great questions.
From everyone at the Four Visions Market family, we would like to thank you for listening to our podcast. We really hope that you've enjoyed the conversation and gained many new insights on plant medicines, ancestral wisdom, and much more. Please remember to visit our website at www.fourvisionsmarket.com for more resources and information on plant medicine and spiritual tools. And please don't forget to follow us across social media for regular updates on upcoming episodes. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this path with you all. Until next time, take care, stay present, and stay connected.